Strategic back again. Appreciate you guys for joining me over here on this Sunday evening. Yeah, it's evening over here by me. I'm in New York. We do a lot of true crime on this channel, and I want to talk to you guys about this case that happened in the Bronx. We're also going to talk about the whole acquittal of Officer Brett Hankison over in the Breonna Taylor case. But this case is interesting to me because it's an example of how people make poor choices. Now, I got to say this before I talk about this murder of this mother and daughter that happened today in the Bronx, New York. The victims being Gabrielle Muniz and her baby, Rozara Estevez. Before I talk about that, I want to say if you are the family member of Gabrielle Muniz, I'm not trying to disparage this woman. She was a beautiful, intelligent, lovely woman and a mother. But I need to talk about this case for all the other little girls out there. I need to talk about this case for all those young women out there who keep making the same mistakes that your loved one made. So I'm going to implore you not to watch this video. And if you are a relative or friend of the person who killed this mother and daughter, Caleb Duberry, that's the murderer, the guy who stabbed the 6-year-old child multiple times in the body and even about the face. That's in addition to the blunt force trauma that incapacitated the child. And the relatives believe that, of course, the mother was the first one to die. Who's going to kill the kid first? Because if you're killing the kid first, then the mother's going to try and stop you. So you kill the adult first, and then you do whatever you want with the kid. So most likely this child watched her mother die in this small apartment building that people were hearing thumping, but nobody was hearing screaming to call the cops. That's a different story. So if you're a relative of this guy, don't come in my comment section telling me, I don't know Caleb. You don't know Caleb. How dare you talk about him? I don't need to effing know Caleb. Because Caleb is a freaking murderer. It doesn't matter how nice he was to you. Doesn't matter how good of an uncle he was. Doesn't matter how good of a dad he was to his kids, because that child he killed was not his own kid. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if he was your friend or your homie. Doesn't freaking matter. He's a murderer. Not only is he a murderer, but he's a child killer. So don't come in my comment section telling me how I don't know your friend, relative, lover, paramour, butt buddy, whatever you want to call the guy. Because I don't care. I don't care. But most importantly, this disclaimer is for the family and friends of Gabrielle Muniz. I said Munoz, but her name is Muniz. Don't watch this video. The reason why this video is not for you is because Gabrielle made a mistake that we see so many young women make. So many young women make this same mistake, and I don't know why women are attracted to men like this. This guy, Caleb Duberry, is a multiple felon who's currently, or was, because he killed himself, on parole. Parole for a violent crime. This woman, Gabrielle Muniz, was a single mother, working for a law firm, in school, majoring in pharmacy, with her own apartment, not on public assistance, just doing it. Yet she decided that this guy was worth putting on her lease after dating him for less than a year, knowing his criminal past, knowing what he's capable of. She sure picked a winner. If you can't see this picture too well, he's got 2 teardrops under his eye. I think we all know now from pop culture that teardrops are supposed to mean that you killed people. So since he's got two, and he's been arrested multiple times throughout his life for violent crimes, it's safe to say he might be the real deal. If he was alive, he'd probably add in 2 more teardrops to make that 4. Young women need to stop going after these bad men. And it's always the same formula. And then we hear that there aren't any good men out there. Oh, there's no good men out there. But yet, the man that you decided to give a chance to is a person who has spent their entire body of work in life proven to the rest of us, to society, that they're not worth a damn. Like, they don't give a damn about life. They don't give a damn about society. They don't give a damn about other people's safety, security, and sanctuary. They don't give a damn about nothing. They don't even give a damn about themselves. Yet you think that you could love them and that your love will somehow change them to be better people. They don't love themselves, but they're supposed to love you. And then time and time again, we see these single mothers, because we hear this word single mother a lot, as though there's always no fathers involved. We don't know if this young girl, Rozara Estevez, father wasn't in her life. Of course, the mother's a single mother. She don't want to be with daddy, maybe for good reason. She's living on her own. That does not mean that daddy was not in his child's life. Doesn't mean he wasn't paying his bills. Doesn't mean he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do. And these women, time and time again, bring these beasts, these demons, around other men's children. Where's the accountability in that? So you have enough sense to be a productive member of society and work for a law firm. You have enough sense to be able to go to school at the same time and major in pharmacy, of which, when she would have graduated, because I had faith she would have graduated, she would have catapulted herself to the middle class, because we know pharmacists make good money. Her family says that her ultimate goal was to be a doctor, and I believe she would have been a doctor. You had sense and the ability and the motivation to accomplish all these things while raising a 6-year-old child. But you didn't have enough sense to understand that this man was beneath you. This man that lived in Boston projects with relatives, was on parole, a man you had to get permission to go out with. Yeah, because when you're on parole for a violent crime, you have to bring your girlfriend or your boyfriend, depending if you're a male or female on parole, you have to bring them into the parole office. The parole officer then has to explain to that person that you are a violent felon. And there's a possibility that you could hurt that person. This is what happens in New York State. And then you have to tell the parole officer, I understand this person's past, but I do not fear for my safety, and I would like to continue to see this person. And then the parole officer will give you permission to date this parolee. Because if the parole officer feels that you do not understand the gravity of the person that you are dealing with, that parole officer can bar that parolee from seeing you. And if that parolee sees you and gets caught, they could then be violated and sent back to prison. So a parole officer sat her down in a New York State office and explained to her that this man is a dangerous man that posed a threat not just to you, but your child, to some other man's child. And she said, I'm in love. Let's do it. And what happens? Less than a year of dating. I'll tell you what happened, guys. Less than a year of dating. He kills her and he kills her kid. He leaves nothing. He leaves nothing. Why? Well, nobody knows why. We don't have a motive yet. But I'll tell you why. Because she most likely wanted to leave him. And he's the best. She was the best thing he ever had. And he had nothing for himself. See, if you're successful, if you're hardworking, you don't have to be, when we say successful, we assume that people are like rich. No. You're a hardworking guy. You work in the factory. You got a good job in the union, in the auto plant. You work for the government. You work for the DMV. You work for the police. You're working for the fire department. You work for Microsoft. You got something going for yourself. If somebody says, I don't want to be with you no more, you're like, okay. It may hurt. It may make you cry. It may make you feel depressed, but you're not going to want to end that person on yourself because you have too much to lose. Because you value what you're accomplishing in your own life. But this guy had nothing. See, this guy viewed himself as worthless. So when she said, I don't want to be with you no more, he couldn't let that go. Because he knew deep down inside that he could never replace what she was willing to take away. Women need to understand you are the gatekeepers. And it is up to you to choose good mates. Don't say there aren't good men out there when you're coming with a roster of dudes like this man, Caleb Duberry. It's not men, it's you. You're the problem. You're the one with bad taste. You're the one who would let a man like this with 2 teardrops on his eye in your life. 35 years old, walking around with teardrops on his face. And a 26-year-old woman who was a mother of a 6-year-old child did not know better. Did not understand that this man was not just a danger to her, but a danger to her child. Too often I notice that people don't put their children first. And I'm not saying that this person was a bad parent. No, not at all. I'm sure that this Muniz young lady was the best parent on the planet. But too often when people are making these decisions, who to love, who to date, they don't take their kids into consideration. If she took her child into consideration, instead of chasing after this perp, she'd have chased after one of those lawyers that she worked with in a law firm. But you know what? That lawyer is not edgy. That lawyer doesn't have a 12-pack. You know why he doesn't have a 12-pack? Because he works 16 hours a day preparing for trial, so he doesn't have time to go to the gym. But what he's lacking in abs, he's lacking in bank. I mean, he's making up for it rather in bank. But he's not edgy. He's not going to come to you and grab you by the neck and say, oh, come here, baby, give me a kiss and make you feel like, oh, my God, he's dominating me. Oh, my God. No, he's going to say, come here. May I please have a kiss? But ladies don't want that. They don't want that. They live in the fantasy, a lot of these ladies, that there's a guy out there who's going to be a provider, a role model, and an edgy gangster all at the same time. And an ultimate lover all at the same time. Provider, leader, gangster, lover, humanitarian, all at the same goddamn time. And it's a myth. Doesn't exist. Like all things in life, you're going to have to make compromises. I'm going to go ahead and play this video for you guys. Heartbreaking. Stabbed this lady multiple times and stabbed her child multiple times, especially in the face. You want to know what that means? That means it was personal for the child. It was personal for mommy, and it was personal for the child. There was resentment in this man. He didn't just want to kill the kid because he didn't want a witness to be present. He literally resented the child. But the family's going to talk about it, and I think they've got some good insight. Let's listen to it.
And we start with that horrifying scene in the Bronx. A mother and her 6-year-old child stabbed to death inside their own bedroom. Police found the 26-year-old mother and her daughter in an apartment on Monticello Avenue in the Edenwald section. Police today closing in on a suspect on Bavona Street, just a mile from the murder scene. But police say the suspect took his own life. And News 4's Jessica Cunnington is live in the Bronx as the community now mourns the mother.
Hey, listen, before they get into this, because I want to play it through, I don't want to interrupt too many times. This guy was a coward, man. He was a coward. He literally killed himself as the police were closing in on him. Like, how do you not see that? How do you not notice, wow, I'm dating a coward? How do you not pick up on those signals that this guy is low rent, low class, and he'll do anything? I don't know. Let's keep going. I'll let you guys keep going.
Jessica?
Gilma, it is just really hard to process something like this. A young mother and her child are dead. We are just learning from police sources that they were both stabbed essentially all over their body. That 6-year-old little girl even stabbed in the face. We are now also learning the name of the suspect who was that young mother's boyfriend. His name is Caleb Duberry. But I did speak with the 26-year-old victim's mother who's down in Florida. I spoke with her by phone. She just wants she doesn't want this horrific crime and these murders to take away from how beautiful these people were.
I have to bury my daughter and my granddaughter, and I just gotta wrap my head around right now.
A mother and grandmother missing a chunk of her heart tonight, gutted out after police found 26-year-old Gabrielle Muniz and 6-year-old Rozara Estevez dead and stabbed multiple times inside their first-floor apartment here on Monticello Avenue in the Bronx.
My daughter was an amazing daughter, mother, sister, friend. She's that girl that everyone wanted to be like.
Last night, just before midnight, police were called here after sources say someone on the 3rd floor heard banging and was concerned. They say Gabrielle's boyfriend, the suspect, was seen leaving the apartment around 4 p.m. yesterday. They'd only been dating less than a year, but he gave Gabrielle's mother a bad gut feeling.
I knew from the beginning who it was, and I just knew he's possessive, just possessive.
Today, just after noon, police say her boyfriend.
It's important, man, and women need to listen to this. If you're watching this stream and you have a boyfriend that's possessive, you can't go out to the store without 10 different explanations. You know, all your friends got to be vetted. You know, your phone gets checked every other day. You know, there's no password on your phone. It gets checked every single day. He has passwords to your social media. That's not love. That's not love. That's parole. That's clear signs of somebody who is possessive, who's controlling, who's unstable, who's unhinged, and could possibly be a threat to your life if you decide to leave. Now, if you have some fetish over being controlled like that, and that is a natural state of affairs for you, and that's where you want to be, then maybe you won't die. Maybe you will live happily ever after under that totalitarian regime you call a relationship. But if you are like most people who don't want to be controlled, who don't want to be followed in the bathroom and watched as you pee and poop, you want to feel like you could be able to say, hey, baby, I'm going shopping, see you later. And like, all right, pick me up something. Then you need to understand that what you're in is an unnatural situation that is very dangerous. And you need to extricate yourself from that as soon as possible. Because these people only get worse. They only get worse as time goes by. If mommy is telling you, another woman, your role model, and you're a female, that your boyfriend seems a little off to me, you better listen to mommy. If your daddy says, yo, listen, something not right about that guy, man. You need to listen to your daddy, because who knows another man better than a man? The whole family looked at this boyfriend with his teardrops on his face at 35 years old, messing with a girl 10 years his junior. And they're all saying, yo, this dude is a weirdo. There's something wrong with this guy. He's a ghetto gangster. You could do better. She didn't listen. She was happy, says one of her sisters. And that happiness cost her life and her daughter's life. And I don't believe, until somebody tells me different, because they always say this in the news, single mother. I don't believe that child was without a father. I don't believe it. He wasn't with the mother, but that doesn't mean that he was not in his child's life. They always sell it that way. And then when you look deeper in the story, you realize, yeah, this kid had a father and the father loved their kid. They just wasn't with the mother. So now mommy's decision made her lose her own life and then stole the life of her daughter away from her daughter's father. Shame. Let's keep going.
Friend was barricading himself here inside the Boston Secor houses on Bavona Street, about a mile away, and was then found dead of self-inflicted stab wounds. The man they believe murdered Gabrielle and Rozara. She was a full-time working mom and a pharmacy student, focused on her goals, wanting to give little Rozara a good life. But for both of them, life was not long enough.
Lady could have got any dude on the planet. She could have been the main chick, the side chick, the whatever chick she wanted. She could choose. She could have set up a table in the middle of Central Park and say, I'm taking applications. And there'd have been a line going all the way down to the village of dudes willing to introduce themselves to her. She could have just taken a walk through Columbia University and freaking picked up 10 engineers, 3 doctoral candidates, and 5 lawyers. She could have choose any mate she wanted to choose because God had blessed her. And instead of choosing somebody who could have actually uplifted her life, taken care of her economically, respected her, she chose a dude on parole. A dude that she can't even go on a date with after 9:30 p.m. because he's got to be in the house. She chooses a 35-year-old man with a receding hairline. No disrespect, my hairline is gone too, but she's 26. She chooses a 35-year-old man with a receding hairline over a dozen felonies, state prison time, with 2 teardrops on his face and eyes that look like Beelzebub himself. That's who she chose to make her mate. And now she's dead and her 6-year-old daughter is dead too. We got to do better, man. We got to fucking do better, ladies and gentlemen. Let's keep going.
Mother, a young mother and a daughter. It's a lot to take in. Make sure that we say, like, you know, I love you to our loved ones, because you never know when it's the last chance you might see them.
And people in this neighborhood started their day, many of them walking to and from church, unfortunately passing this crime scene. And when they found out what happened, honestly feeling sick to their stomach. But tonight, as the sun goes down, people are still dealing with this crime scene. As you can see, Monticello is still blocked off, police still in there, detectives in there as well. But also, we do know tonight that the suspect, police tell us, Caleb Duberry, is now dead. In Edenwald tonight, I'm Jessica Cunnington, News 4, New York.
Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. I want to go ahead and read this article for you guys. And then I'm actually, before we talk about the Brent Hankison situation, I'm going to tell you guys a conversation I had with a New York State senator, not senator on a federal level, on the state legislature level. And we talked about bail reform. We had personal conversation. I'm not going to say who, but we had a personal conversation. And the point is not to air out the conversation that I had with the man. It's to explain to you why it is we're in the situation we're in right now in America when it comes to crime and punishment. Why is crime going through the roof, and why are our politicians doing absolutely nothing to stop it? I'm going to tell you, I wasn't going to say it. I had this conversation since a couple days ago, and I've done a few lives and I haven't spoken about it, but I think it's important because of this case for us to discuss that conversation I had with this gentleman. So I don't even know what's playing right now. That's interesting. IHOP Brawl, let's watch it. Screw it. Start that over. All right. This is totally unrelated. The article is like right below this, but it's a brawl. Let's watch it. Let's see what it is. Man, she wailing on her. Beating that ass. The one in the red back is beating that ass. Oh, look at this over there. That's a real brawl, bro. Why they got the country music on though? Yeah. Why she spanking her butt? I thought she did that in the head. My fault. I thought she was giving her a butt spanking. Damn. Yo. Yo, that's hilarious, man. That's absolutely hilarious. And it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs because what I took from that whole video is that we do have a very bad obesity problem in America, period. Every single one of those ladies were morbidly obese. And, you know, we have that issue in America. We need to tackle that. Anyway, back to the story. My apologies that we took that detour. It just was too interesting to pass up. A Bronx man is believed to have butchered his girlfriend and her 6-year-old daughter inside their apartment before killing himself Sunday, according to cops and sources. Bodies of Gabrielle Muniz, 26, and her kid, Rozara Estevez, were found with stab wounds all over in a bedroom inside their Monticello Avenue home around 1:50 p.m. She had a 1-bedroom apartment. She's with her daughter. She's doing her best to take care of the child. It's just really sad. The quote is, "I'm disgusted at what happened because it not only took my daughter, but my niece, not only took my sister, but my niece," the dead woman's sister, Gabrielle Muniz, told the Post. Her voice breaking, she added, "I'm sure she watched her mommy die before she was taken." That's so sad. So sad. Sources identified the suspect, Gabrielle's boyfriend, Caleb Duberry, who was on parole for assault at the time. So he's on parole for a violent offense. As I told you guys know I used to work for corrections. Corrections and parole is one agency in New York State, and I was an investigator, so I had authority over both parts of that agency, both the corrections and the parole side, so I know their policies and procedures. If you have a violent crime, New York State parole they have to check that box off because the parolee has to ask for permission to go to this person's house because they get checked on. So they're going to ask for permission because they don't want to get caught out there when a parole officer comes knock on their door and they're like, "No, nobody's home," you know? And the girlfriend had put him on the lease, which meant that he would be able to actually spend the night at her house. And so instead of having to, check in on his curfew at that Boston Project residence, which is a mile away from her apartment, he would be able to stay at her apartment because that's his residence too as well. So for them to move in together, especially when there's a minor involved, 100%. So I think somebody asked in the chat, are you sure that they really did that check or did they drop the ball? Not at all. 100% sure because there's a minor involved. That parole officer pulled him into the office, pulled Gabrielle into the office, and explained to Gabrielle that he's a violent felon. Explained to her that there's a possibility he could hurt her because he has shown violence in his past. And so, are you sure? Now, parole, their job is not right off the gate to say, no, you can't be with each other. You have to really show that you don't understand what you're getting yourself into for parole to step in. They don't want to just be messing with people's personal life. So when she comes into the office and the parole officer explains to her that he's a violent felon and all that good stuff, and she says, yeah, I still want to be with him, that parole officer is done. That parole officer is making a note in the computer. Yo, listen, spoke to the girlfriend. Her name is Gabrielle Muniz. Her date of birth is blah, 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 blah. She lives at this address. We sat down. I told her, you know, his criminal past. She said she doesn't care. She wants to continue the relationship. Done. That parole officer covered themselves. They're not going above and beyond to make this guy's life difficult and her life difficult and get involved in their love affair. That parole officer has covered themselves legally because she's an adult and she made a choice. So I'm pretty sure that conversation happened because that's part of the policies and procedures. And it would do nothing but protect that parole officer if something like this happens. Duberry, 35, barricaded himself inside an apartment about a mile from his girlfriend and fatally stabbed himself with a knife as police closed in at 12:15 p.m. Sunday, sources said. He's a coward, man. Gabrielle had added him to the lease on the Monticello Avenue apartment a few months back. She had only been dating him for less than a year, but yet a few months back, she added him on the lease. Moving way too fast. Way too fast. She don't even know this man. And yet she's falling head over heels for the guy. Giselle, who lives in Florida, said her sister had been with Duberry for less than a year. And Rozara was not his child. I'm really good with vibes, and I honestly didn't really like him, Giselle said. I just knew she was happy. Unfortunate. Gabrielle worked from home for a law firm and was in school studying pharmacy. She wanted to be a doctor someday, her sister added. This is the crime scene. Whole apartment building is a goddamn crime scene. She was doing so well. I never expected this to happen, Giselle said. She did so much for her daughter. That was her main motivation. As you can see, the daughter had on a Fendi shirt. And I gotta tell you guys, man, I'm from New York. I don't live in New York City no more, but I grew up in New York. A lot of you guys from different parts of the country, New Yorkers don't wear fake crap. Somebody find out you wearing fake stuff, jokes forever. You see a New Yorker with a Fendi shirt, it's a Fendi shirt. You see a New Yorker with a Gucci belt, it's a Gucci belt. I think all that stuff is stupid. And these people waste their money on this stuff. But especially that little girl, that Spanish mommy would not put fake Fendi on her daughter's body. So that little girl was well cared for. Just mommy didn't have good taste in men. Duberry had numerous arrests for gun possession, robbery, and assault, according to sources. Gabrielle and Duberry were last seen on surveillance video at around 9:30 p.m. Friday, leaving her apartment to throw out the trash. Duberry was spotted entering and leaving the apartment multiple times the next morning and last left around 4:30 p.m. A motive in the double slaying was not immediately clear. So to say, Gabrielle had multiple stab wounds to her head, back, and arms. That's personal. When people start stabbing faces and heads, the arms is defensive wounds most often. When people start stabbing faces and heads, it's personal, it's anger, it's passion. With Rozara, suffered blunt force trauma to the head. He hit her in the head with something, chair, bat, whatever. And then because it's personal for him, probably hated that little girl because mommy's attention had to be shared with the little girl. That's how possessive guys are. They don't like to compete with children. Or the children are become a roadblock. It becomes something, an object to be jealous of. Oh, she loves her kid, so I hate the kid. This is ridiculous. But just how these dudes think with their criminal minds and their psychosis. So after he hit the kid with the the instrument that caused the blunt force trauma, it's personal. He hates the child. What does he do? Stabs the child up in the face. Blunt force trauma to the head, as well as multiple stab wounds to the face. That's personal, ladies and gentlemen. It's personal. The little girl was little beam of sunshine, Giselle said. She loved her unicorn, said the grieving aunt. She was so sweet. Just thinking about her and her voice is in my head. I can't believe that this happened to her, too. She was so sweet and innocent. She just turned 6. That's disgusting. Neighbor Maria Yanesate, I don't know how to say that, 14, said she was in shock over the sickening violence in her building. First of all, they should not even be interviewing a 14-year-old because she, come on, she's a minor. A young mother and her daughter, it's a lot to take in, especially on a block where nothing bad ever happened, she said. It's terrible. They haven't lived a life yet. They're still a baby. They haven't made it to middle school or high school. Like I said, they shouldn't be interviewing a little girl, but that little girl couldn't have said no truer words. That little 5-year-old who had just turned 6, rather, that 6-year-old didn't even have a chance to live yet. It's unfortunate. Anyway, I'm gonna pray for the family. Oh, I hope the family doesn't watch this video, because this video is not for them. But I do pray for them, and I pray for this little princess, this little angel who died, and I pray for her mother. And I also pray that God will have swift justice and vengeance on that demon, Mr. Duberry. Send him where he belongs. Send him to hell. All right. So this guy's out on parole. Obviously a parole board looked at his record and said, his institutional record, and say, yeah, we believe that you will go out on the streets and actually be a contributing member of society. They were obviously wrong. But one of the larger issues that we have in New York and other places across this country is bail reform. So I was contacted by one of my community partners a few weeks ago, and they said, hey, listen, a state senator, New York State senator, is going to be coming into a community event, and we want you and your partner to be there since you're our community officers. So I came to the event. This was just a couple days ago, and I didn't even know who this guy was, because I'm not really big on local politics. And I thought that I didn't know it was a state senator. I want to digress a little bit. They said that a politician was coming. I thought it was going to be like one of the municipal elected officials, one of the local people. So we start talking about bail reform, and I'm like, we really need to fix bail reform, but I know that's not your issue, because you're not the one who, had the authority to vote it into law. And then this gentleman says, no, it is my issue. I'm a state senator. I'm a state senator. I definitely was one of the architects of that law. So I'm now strategic eyes. I'm now talking to one of the architects of the New York State bail reform law that's literally just driving the whole state. People talk about New York City because New York City is so big and so famous, but the whole state is going downhill. Crime is going up across the state because of bail reform. So I told the guy, I said, listen, I believe in bail reform. And he's like, wow, I'm going to stop you there. I'm happy to hear that, because I have not spoken to one police officer yet who says that they believe in bail reform. So then I continued, and I said, well, I'm happy to impress you, So I continued. I said, of course, bail reform is important. I said, it's not fair, obviously, that if me and you go steal in a store and you've got money, rich, middle class, whatever, you got money, I don't have money. We both get caught at the same time. We both stole the same amount of goods. And then the judge gives us a bail. But because you come from money, you can easily pay that bail and immediately walk out of the courtroom. You don't even have to wait. You got a credit card on you. You put it on your credit card. You're out the door. But I don't have that money. So now I have to spend the next year in county jail trying to fight that case. Guilty or not, I got to fight that case from the inside. A nonviolent crime. I stole something. I didn't hurt anybody but a bottom line and some insurance fees. But I'm fighting that case as an inmate, and you're fighting it on the outside. You go meet with your lawyer, and then you go to Fridays and have some dinner, and then you go home and you watch some Netflix, and your lawyer keeps pushing the court back. So now this petty larceny case lasts 3-4 years because they keep asking for continuances and extensions. But mind you, I can't tell my lawyer to ask for those extensions, because every extension means I got to spend more months in prison. So you're at a disadvantage when you're in jail. So I said, of course, it's not fair that you should have a bail system that incentivizes people who have money to be able to go out on the streets and people who are poor to stay incarcerated. So that needed to change, obviously. But what needs to be tweaked is that we should not allow people to be gifted this no bail situation. And then they just take advantage of it and just keep committing crimes. And now they're doing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 crimes in less than a month. And then they just keep getting released. At some point, we need to give judges the discretion to say, you keep doing crimes against society, you got to stay in jail. The guy said, I disagree. So I said, well, the problem is that you guys are letting these folks go, but you're not giving them any services. And he said, well, I agree with that. Well, he wouldn't go into details of why he disagreed. But he said he agreed with that. And then, he did the typical politician thing where he's like, I sponsored this bill and I sponsored that bill. And right now it's winding its way through the legislature, and we're going to give people services. We're going to open up more mental health beds. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And he knows as well as I do that that's not going to solve the problem, because no government is going to be willing to spend the amount of money that's necessary to actually solve the issue. There's way more. There's thousands of mentally ill people walking around the streets of New York City. What is increasing mental health beds in hospitals by 200 beds going to do when we have thousands of people who need those beds? It's only going to just do a dent into the problem. You can have 1,000 job training programs out there, but if this drug dealer doesn't want to go because he makes more money selling drugs, there's nothing you could do to force him into that training. There's some things that we aren't willing to spend enough to fix, like mental illness. We could fix that. You just build hospitals and house people there. Some people say that's inhumane, but that's a solution. Whether it's a solution we want to do or not, doesn't matter. It's a solution. But there are other things that you can't spend to fix. There are things that people have to change within themselves to fix. Like, you can have jobs available for people, but they have to want to work them. You can have free scholarships for people to go to college, but they have to want to attend. There's some things you just can't fix because people have to fix within themselves. So we had this conversation, we're debating, it's pretty good. It's not that good that we're making any progress, but it's good that we're actually being able to talk. And then a few people come over like, oh, there's other people here who want to meet the state senator, can he please come or whatever? And then they take him away. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I got to go. And then he goes. And then I speak to his chief of staff. And this is the purpose of me telling you this story, because his chief of staff reveals to me what the issue is. And these are all nice people. And the chief of staff doesn't say anything wrong for him to get in trouble, just in case, that state senator actually ends up being a fan of the Strategic Eyes show and watches and says, oh my God, you had this conversation with him behind my back? What the chief of staff told me is he agreed with everything that I said. He said, the problem is that this is for New York, all right? I don't know what it is in your municipality. The problem that these New York politicians have that they're not saying out loud is that they see that there are issues that need to be fixed, but they're afraid that if they open the door to fixing some of these issues, it's going to give leeway for the people who want to totally abolish bail reform to come in and change more than what should be changed, or to fight to get it repealed. So basically, it's a situation where these politicians believe that if I acknowledge that there's a problem, then people are going to take advantage of that weakness, that perceived weakness, and try and destroy the bill or change it beyond repair. And I feel that that's so juvenile, because we're playing with people's lives. And to me, maybe that sounds like a sound political strategy to say, well, we don't want to change anything, but it sounds like ego to me. It doesn't sound like you care about the people that you purport to want to help. It sounds like you care more about your legacy, more about your ego, than actually putting forward a bill that's actually going to help people. Because like I told the state senator, how does it help a drug addict for you to release them back into the community with no services? So I keep arresting this person for using drugs or drug-related crimes. And all you're doing is just no bail, walk back out to the streets. Well, what do you think that person does? They've only been off the streets for like 2-3 hours. Like, people need to understand how this works in New York. You don't go to jail and then get released from the jail. You get arrested from doing the crime. You just stole somebody's bag. You strong arm robbed them. Guess what? That qualifies for no bail. As long as you don't punch them and stab them or shoot them. If you just rip a lady's bag off and runs and she doesn't cause any injury to her, that's a strong arm robbery. That's bail reform eligible. So you rip her bag off. She goes, he just stole my bag. The community grabs you up. The cops come. They put the bracelets on you. Let me explain to you how the process works. You now go back to the police station. You get searched. Your stuff gets inventoried. You go sit in the cell. The police officer types up the paperwork. That takes like an hour. They send the paper up to Albany. They verify the prints, the pictures. They send back a release time, which is the time that they send back. And then you release the person. This could take anywhere from an hour to 3 hours. In my department, if it takes you more than 4 hours, you have to write a letter to your boss, explaining an email, explaining why it took you more than 4 hours to get this person out the door. Because the police department doesn't even want them in there for an extended period of time. So if you arrest this drug addict who stole this woman's bag, and he just walks out of the precinct 3 hours later, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to go out there and do another crime so he can get more money to go get high. See, I'd understand if the process was, all right, we're not going to send them to jail, but we're going to take them to rehab. We're going to put them in a program. We're going to get a social worker to monitor them like parole and make sure that they're going to programs and kind of trying to change their life. I get that, but it's not happening. It's not happening. So we're catching guys stealing from the store every single day. We're not talking about, like, when people hear the word stealing, when people hear robbery, they think violence. Putting a gun in somebody's face, give me your money. But when people hear the word stealing, they think you're stealing a loaf of bread. No, we got people going into Targets and stealing over $1,000 worth of stuff. They go to the printer aisle and they just load up bags and bags and bags of ink. Look how expensive ink is. That's what they're doing. So every day you're going and you're stealing ink, $1,000, $2,000. That's what's being stolen. The activists will make you believe that they're stealing a couple dollars worth of stuff. No, they're stealing thousands of dollars worth of stuff in one shot. I was in the office with the loss prevention of Target a couple months back. And we had just arrested a guy and we were getting the security footage so we could give it to the DA. And Target has this special software that tracks people who steal, because they could go and inventory a section. They know how much product they put out. They know how much product was sold from that shelf. So if the rest of the product is missing, that's the product that was stolen. And they're also watching on camera so they can count how many times you put stuff in your bag. The bottom line is, the guy that we had arrested, in 3 months, he stole $20,000 worth of merchandise from different Targets all over New York State. New York City, Westchester, Long Island, all over like the New York City and the suburbs of New York. He just goes and steals ink. And in 3 months, he stole $20,000 worth of ink. That's what we're dealing with. And after we collected the video evidence, took pictures of the items and returned it back to the store because we were able to catch him right outside the store, we brought him back to the precinct. He starts threatening to cause a fuss if we don't get him something to eat. So we gave him a cigarette, a slice of pizza, and a Diet Coke. He said thank you. He sat down quietly in his cell, and 3 hours later, he was walking out the door. Is that what bail reform is supposed to be? And he didn't stop stealing, guys. Kept going. At the same target. Because what's there to lose? If you get caught, you spend 3 hours inside of a precinct and then you leave. If you don't get caught, you walk away with $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 worth of merchandise. So there you have it. Can't speak for your municipality, can't speak for your state, but in New York State, they don't want to amend bail reform. They don't want to give judges the ability to have discretion and say that somebody is a danger to the community and needs to stay in prison. They don't want to do that because they don't want to admit that they had put into effect a flawed law. It's all about ego, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about ego. So let's move on to the next topic. First of all, before I go to the next topic, let me acknowledge you fine people who are in the chat. Appreciate you guys immensely. Thanks for hitting that like button. Don't forget to keep hitting that like button if you're in the room watching and you haven't hit the like button. Do me a favor, make sure that you hit that like button. Gmail account said, a classmate, a black conservative, his complaint was the government had a rule that for his wife and kid to get support, they couldn't be living with him. He said it's how they destroy black families and men. That's something that's been happening since the 60s, 50s, or whatever. Gmail account. And what ends up happening is it's all about your income. And the way that these incomes are set is that you could just make $1 more than the income limit and you won't get any support. There's no buffer zone. There's no discretion that the social worker has at the welfare office to say, you know what, this person makes $100 more, but I can see from their lifestyle, from their debt, from this, from that, that they need the assistance and I'm going to grant them the assistance. No, if you make $1 more than what the income limit is, you don't get support. So a lot of times when you have a father and a mother living together, when they put their incomes together, they may just make barely above that amount that's set. And then they're told they don't get assistance. So what ends up happening is well, daddy doesn't live there. Maybe daddy lives there, but he pretends he doesn't live there and he's committing fraud. Or maybe they break up because it's like, yo, I can't be with you because I need to take care of these kids. And what you're giving me is not enough. So I'd rather take from the government and then put you on child support. These things have happened for a very long time. And yes, it has contributed to the destruction of black families. And it's so unfortunate because America was greater before we allowed the government to support our families long term. You always got to have a social safety net. It's important in any society. You can't let people hit rock bottom to the point where they can't pick themselves back up. But when the government starts being daddy and feeding your children for generations, you know you got a problem. Thanks for sharing that Gmail account. Appreciate you. Let's keep going. Chris Dreyer says 1% agree. How bad does it have to get, Mr. Senator? What about that girl that got stabbed and her daughter? They'd be alive if not for this bail reform. You know, a lot of people understand like that's a little bit of a separate issue because he was on parole and bail reform is different than parole. But you're not wrong, Chris Dreyer, because when they did bail reform, they also became more lenient on parole. They also took away a lot of the abilities of parole officers to remand and revoke parole of parolees. So now it's harder for a parole officer to say, you're doing bad, you need to go back to prison. And it's more liberal and easier for parole boards to say, you know what, we'll give you a chance to go out on these streets. Well, they gave Duberry a chance to send him out on the streets. And look what he did. He killed that beautiful woman and her beautiful daughter. Absolutely, I agree with you, Chris Jar. Thanks for sharing. All right, Daniel Williams in the building. Appreciate you, Danielle Williams. Hello, everyone. Hello to you as well. Appreciate you for coming through, supporting the Strategic Guys Show. Let's go on to the last topic of the day. I started a little bit early because I do want to end early. We're already at the 54-minute mark. Got a lot of clothes to fold and cleaning stuff up. So we head over to Brett Hankison. And a lot of people don't agree with me when I talk about Breonna Taylor. We're going to be here for another half an hour, guys. But at least you know you're getting a full show. A lot of people don't agree with me with my views on Breonna Taylor. The reason why I have my views on Breonna Taylor is not that I don't love black women. It's not that I don't support the African-American community. I think if anybody who watches my show, you know that I love the African-American community more than anything. That's why I'm here on YouTube, for my love for my people. It's because I like facts. And the funny thing about facts is that they don't have color. They don't have ethnicities. They don't have gender. They don't have sexuality. They don't have anything. A fact is just a fact. It's a truth. It's an unwavering truth. You either accept it or you don't. But whether you accept it or not, it still exists. And when you looked at the Breonna Taylor case, you understood that it was an unfortunate tragedy. But the police officers had every right to be at Breonna Taylor's house. And the police officers had every right to knock on her door, break her door down. The police officers also had every right to return fire in the apartment of Breonna Taylor, because the facts tell us that. Now, did Breonna Taylor deserve to die? Absolutely not. And you're going to hear a lot of YouTubers, especially conservative YouTubers, who are going to say, screw her. She deserved it. No, she didn't deserve it. Nobody deserved it. Just like that murderer that we just spoke about, Duberry, did not deserve to take his own life. He deserved to live so that he could face justice from the rest of us in society, and put him in a cage and lock him away for the rest of his life. And then let those boys in jail deal with him, because nobody likes a child killer. But he killed himself, so we won't get that justice. Breonna Taylor was not a bad person. What she was a woman who liked messing with bad men, who liked straddling the line of being a good girl but having an edgy side. And what happened in Breonna Taylor is she was messing with a drug dealer. I'm just going to paraphrase. We're not going to go into it because it's a very complicated and long story. But for those of you who are not familiar with it, Breonna Taylor was a young woman who had a day job. She worked as a emergency medical technician or something like that. A surgery technician. She's the one that lays out the tools. She's the one that makes sure that the tools are sanitized, make sure that the operating room is set up, the sheets are on the bed, the gloves are in the corner, the doctor likes his scalpel next to his clamps. She's the one that sets it up. That was her job. That was a day job. In the nighttime, she messed with a drug dealer. The drug dealer was the head of a major gun running and drug dealing cartel, not a gang. The FBI and the state police and the Louisville, Kentucky Police Department considered her boyfriend the head of a cartel. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It's up there. He was a kingpin, a head of a cartel that ran guns all up the East Coast of the United States of America and had Louisville, Kentucky, the part that he lived in, that his base of operation was in, on lock for drug dealing and drug selling. Breonna Taylor would hold his money and his compatriots' money, multiple drug dealers and gun runners' money. She was the one that would hold that money. She was their banker. The police also alleged that Breonna Taylor would receive packages of drugs that were mailed, because a lot of drugs is mailed through the U.S. Postal Service, believe it or not. They disguise it, they wrap it, they do whatever they do, it gets through. They alleged that drugs was being shipped to her house as well. This boyfriend would also drive her car to the various trap houses to deliver drugs and guns. All right. She was mixed up with bad people. The boyfriend who was with her that night, who shot at a police officer and shot that police officer in the leg, resulting in the officers returning fire, he was caught on jail conversations speaking about robbing an individual out there. So he was a guy that engaged in robberies. They had also suspected him of possibly being a person who engaged in armed robberies. Maybe it's not true, but it's on the jail phone calls, and that's what the police are saying. It is what it is. On the fateful day that Breonna Taylor died, the police had obtained a lawful search warrant for the apartment. It was a no-knock warrant, but I think everybody understands and accepts that the police did knock. How do we know that the cops knocked? Because Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, the one who shot the cops, said that they was knocking. They was knocking on the door. They were knocking very hard. It startled him and Brionna. They got out the bed. They got dressed. They thought it was the ex-boyfriend that was at the door, the drug dealer dude. Because at that time, they were estranged a little bit. They were estranged for a couple of weeks. They got dressed. They went to the hallway. They said, "Who is it?" And then the boyfriend shot through the door. When he shot through the door and the officers observed that their sergeant was wounded in the leg by a bullet from Breonna Taylor's paramour's gun, the officers started returning fire through the door. That's what killed Breonna Taylor. Now, people trying to figure out, did the boyfriend use Breonna Taylor as a shield? Did he duck to the ground and she stand up? We don't know. What we do know is that when he was removed from the house, he said that Breonna Taylor is the one that shot the cop. I've played that video for you guys numerous times on previous videos. If you don't believe me, just type into YouTube, find out the guy's name. I forgot his name. That's why I keep calling him the boyfriend. Find out his name, type it in YouTube, and add said that Breonna Taylor was the shooter. And you'll see the body-worn camera footage where this man is saying, "I didn't shoot it. It was Breonna Taylor. She shot him because she was scared." Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about the fact that this man blamed Breonna Taylor for shooting the police officer when in fact it was him who shot the police officer. Nobody talks about that. So if you're going to blame Breonna Taylor for being the one who shot the cop when she didn't do it, it was you, then we could think anything. There's a possibility he used Breonna Taylor as a human shield as far as I'm concerned. But when those officers returned fire, there was another officer who was on the back end of this apartment complex. His name was Brett Hankison. And he shot through that apartment, and his bullets went into another apartment. He was the only officer that was charged in this whole fiasco. And he was charged with wanton endangerment. The prosecutors took 100 days to charge him after tons of protests, outrage, riots, all that good stuff over this officer. Finally, the state attorney general decided to charge this officer. They alleged that his bullets going through Breonna Taylor's walls and going through those walls into another apartment endangered those people, and they were trying to say that this officer was guilty. I knew from the jump that this was bullshit. If officers are being fired upon, they're trained to return fire. It sucks. It sounds crazy. But if those bullets happen and hit somebody innocent, we've accepted that as a society. We have. We've accepted as a society. Every single day you turn on the news, you see cops having gun battles with bad guys in the middle of the street, the middle residential areas. You're not charging those cops. Have you ever heard of those cops being charged? No, we understand that this bad guy is armed and dangerous and does not care about human life. So the police have to do everything in their power to stop him, because if he's able to get away, he's just going to go kill random people. And that's a sure bet death that that's going to happen. So we train officers as best as we can to make sure that their shots are counted for as best as possible. But in the event that something happens that's an accident, you don't typically arrest the cops. This was typically something that would never be charged against a police officer, and it was done simply for politics. So let's read what happened, guys. After deliberating for 3 hours, a Jefferson County jury found ex-Louisville Metro Police Detective Brett Hankison not guilty Thursday on 3 counts of wanton endangerment in a raid that left Breonna Taylor dead in her apartment. Not guilty. The wanton endangerment trial of Hankison, 45, was set for a jury of 8 men and 4 women just before noon Thursday after 5 days of witnesses' testimony and a morning of closing arguments. They did not have a hung jury, ladies and gentlemen. They literally all unanimously said not guilty. It didn't take them long to make a decision that brought protesters back out onto downtown Louisville streets. 3 hours. A multiracial jury, 3 hours. Not guilty. Not guilty, retweeted retired Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly, who was the officer who was shot. Actually, I was about to tell you that, but they're going to tell you that. Who was shot during the raid on Breonna Taylor's apartment. Thank you, Jesus. So this guy is the one who was shot by Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, the guy who went out there and told the police that Breonna Taylor was the gunman when he knew he was the one who shot through the door. And now he's suing. He's suing, even though he blamed the dead woman for shooting this cop, John Mattingly. At the courthouse, defense attorney Steve Matthews told reporters he was thrilled with the outcome. Of course he was. It's a good win for him. I think it was absolutely a fact that he was doing his job as a police officer, Matthews said. I'm sort of at a loss for words right now. I think absolutely Brett was. The jury felt like you go out and perform your duty and your brother officer gets shot, you've got a right to defend yourself. Simple as that. We respect that the jury's verdict. Prosecutor Barbara Maines Whaley told reporters as she left the courtroom. She declined to comment further. Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, walked out after the verdict without comment before the trial. She told the Courier-Journal she has no faith Hankison would be convicted. I guess she's a psychic, because that's exactly what happened. Saying she could never really trust the system anymore. Don't you trust the millions that you got? She's a multi-millionaire, this lady right here. This lady's a multi-millionaire. She got like $20 million. Your daughter chooses to sleep with gangsters, robbers, gun runners, drug dealers, dies because of her association. One of her robber boyfriends decides to shoot through a door while the cops are doing a raid. Remember, guys, the story and the lie was that Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her bed and the police knocked on the wrong door and killed her while she was in bed. That never happened. Never happened. Breonna Taylor was fully dressed and in the hallway when she was shot as a result of her boyfriend, paramour, booty call, whatever, shooting a police officer through the door as they're doing a raid, ducking out of the way and leaving his girlfriend to take all those bullets. And then when he's out there in custody, blaming her for shooting the cop, even though she's not the one who shot the gun. That's the type of people your daughter was putting in her life, was sharing her bed with. And because of that, she died. And because of that, you've got $20 million you would have never seen in your entire life. You got generational wealth off of her sacrifice. You take that for what it's worth. But Taylor's sister, Janiyah Palmer, another millionaire, expressed her disgust with the verdict on social media. I wonder if she got a blue check mark. I mean, she's a multimillionaire. She should have a blue check mark. Lord, comma, the system is a failure. It's like they constantly walk over my sister. I'm so tired of this injustice. ASS system. How do anybody find this man not guilty on everything? Ben Crump, another multimillionaire, offered the bodies of black people, dead black people who die from unfortunate circumstances. Ben Crump says a Florida-based attorney who has represented the family of Taylor and other black Americans killed by police said the fact that Hankison was charged for endangering Taylor's white neighbors and not for her death is a slap in the face for Brionna and her family. Now, this guy, I don't give a damn how much you care about the cause. If you respect Ben Crump, you are an idiot. This guy does not care about black people. He cares about his own fame and personal fortune. His own fame and personal fortune. Understand, he gets between 15 and 10, and 20% of what this family gets. So if they got $20 million, he got between 10 and 20% of what they got as a settlement for Breonna Taylor's death. And he's been getting those 10 to 20% for years. Every single major killing that occurred involving African Americans and police, Ben Crump has been representing those people since that demon. I don't even know if I should say his name. I don't know if I should say his name. I hate that guy. All right, I'll say it. I add the demon first. Since that demon, George Zimmerman, killed that little boy. Since that demon, George Zimmerman, picked a fight with a little boy, got his ass kicked, and instead of taking that beating like a man, decided to pull a gun out and shoot the kid. He's been making millions off of black bodies, dead black bodies, since that kid died, since George Zimmerman killed that kid, Trayvon Martin. And you can see his lies here. And I can tell you 1,000 stories of all the lies this man had told. One of the biggest lies he told was the Breonna Taylor lie, that Breonna Taylor was asleep in her bed when the police busted into the wrong house and shot her while she was sleeping. That's a lie that Benjamin Crump told. You want to hear another lie? That Jacob Blake was just driving down the street with his kids minding his business when he seen two stranger women fighting, and he decided to pull over, leave his children in the car unattended, and go break up that fight because he's a good Samaritan. And then the police just showed up and shot him 7 times in his back. That's another lie. Well, listen to this lie right here. That it's a travesty because the Attorney General charged Brent Hankison for shooting through the walls of Breonna Taylor's white neighbors and not charging him for the death of Breonna Taylor, even though Benjamin Crump knows that Brett Hankison's bullets all were traced and accounted for, and none of his bullets killed Breonna Taylor. Ballistics were done on all of Brent Hankison's bullets, and not one of his bullets hit Breonna Taylor. So why would you say that he should be charged for her death when we know for a fact that none of his bullets hit that woman's body? But he's a prolific liar, and people are now calling him a black leader. He's a civil rights leader. Jesus Christ. Hit that like button if you haven't hit the like button already. And if you're watching on Facebook or Twitch, please hit that like button, whatever, or that thumbs up, whatever you guys got going on those platforms. Show that love, respect, support the channel. Let's continue. The lack of accountability showcasing every aspect of Breonna Taylor's killing speaks to how much more work there is to be done before we can say our justice system is fair and our system of policing is protective of people of color, he said in a statement. Local Taylor family attorney, they got multiple attorneys. They got a local attorney. I guess that's what happens when you're a multimillionaire. Sam McGuire took to the social media to say only, there's some things I'll never understand. LMPD issued a statement saying the department has prioritized rebuilding trust with the community since the shooting. LMPD issued a statement. LMPD respects the judicial process, also recognize that there are still potentially more proceedings that may be held on the case, and it will not provide further comment at this time. It's nothing else is important. Oh, let's read this. Thursday night, several dozen protesters gathered at Jefferson Square Park downtown shouting, "We won't let this go." They said several dozen. It's probably like 20 people out there. A white man cries and the whole world feels sorry for him, said Tara Walker, co-chair of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. That's a long-ass name right there. But black mothers have been crying for years, hundreds of years, for their black children who have been ripped from their homes, lynched on a tree, now shot by police officers, but we still don't get no justice. America does not feel sorry for black mothers, black families who are crying for their dead babies. Some then began marching through the streets chanting Breonna Taylor, Bree Way, and you can't stop the revolution. Interesting. As they walked down 4th Street Live, stopped in front of a steakhouse to chant Black Lives Matter. Several diners inside raised their fists in solidarity. They're afraid. I guarantee you that they are afraid. That's why they're raising their fist. The march began back at the park, which has served as the heart of the protest movement in Louisville for nearly 2 years. And this is these folks. Let's count. Let's go to the Twitter and let's count. Let's see here. Let's see if we can make this big. And let's see here. These are the protesters that so many of them. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Let's say there's 30 people. 30 people out there. 30 people. But the news is covering it like it's a whole movement. The defense paints Hankison as a hero. Hankison fired 10 rounds into Taylor's apartment through a covered glass door and window during the attempted search warrant execution gone wrong. 3 of those rounds traveled into adjacent apartment with a man, pregnant woman, and 5-year-old child inside. Though Taylor's death is inextricably linked to Hankison's case, she is not the victim in the trial, which attorneys frequently reminded jurors. No one has been directly charged with Taylor's death. On one side, Matthews likened his claim actions to that of New York City police and firefighters running toward the Twin Towers on September 11th as others ran away. That probably was hilarious hearing that comparison. There's no comparison. Hankison could have fled, he said, but instead returned fire to protect his fellow officers. That he did do. They run towards the danger, he said, of first responders. That's true, too. And that's what Brett Hankison did here. Matthews sought to pin the whole tragedy on Kenneth Walker. That's the guy name. Listen to this, guys. This is important. Matthews sought to pin the whole tragedy on Kenneth Walker, who fired 1 round from his legally owned handgun when officers used a battering ram to force open the apartment's front door. He fired the first shot, but he lied, and he said that Breonna Taylor was the one who did it. And you know what? I'm gonna find that. Yes, I am. I'm gonna pull that bad boy up. I'm gonna let you folks listen to it because people don't believe what they can't hear. What's this guy's name? What's this douchebag's name? I really don't like this guy. And you know what the funny thing is, the Taylor family doesn't like him either. So if the Taylor family was to hear me talking about Kenneth Walker, they would agree. They think that he just wants to make himself the center of everything, and he's just doing it for the money. Kenneth Walker blames Brionna. There we go. Let's see if that pulls it up. Because you know YouTube be burying this stuff. YouTube be burying this stuff. They don't want us to find it. We supposed to just believe what he says. That's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to just take his word for it. I'm searching. Let me finish the article and then I'm gonna search for it. Matthews sought to pin the whole tragedy on Kenneth. Oh, we read that. Walker's bullet struck Mattingly in the thigh, severing his femoral artery. He could have killed him. He literally could have killed him. You get hit in that artery, you literally bleed out in a couple of minutes, couple of seconds, really. So they probably put that tourniquet on him instantly. And prompting officers to fire 32 rounds in return. If I'm doing a search warrant and a bullet comes through that door and strikes one of my partners, I'm gonna be laying down cover fire. That's what I'm trained to do. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a common denominator in this case, Mattingly told the jury. That person is not on trial here. That person is Kenneth Walker. He's the fellow who fired the bullet, the initial bullet. that struck Sergeant John Mattingly while he was in performance of his duties as a police officer, serving a search warrant at 3003 Springfield Drive. It's a good attorney. Walker was initially charged with assault and attempted murder for the shooting, but the charges against him were permanently dismissed. That was all politics, ladies and gentlemen. Last March, Walker has maintained he did not know police were on the other side of the door. There are witnesses that said that the guys were knocking on the door saying police. So I don't believe that. When he fired and has an ongoing civil suit against the police, of course he does, because he wants to be rich too. He wants some of that Breonna Taylor money. They gave Breonna Taylor's family like $20 million. He wanted at least $5 million. You got to give me at least $5 million. I live, so I'm not going to ask for 20. You got to at least give me $5 or $10 million if you gave her 20. The narrative and perspective presented by the prosecutors were a disservice to the victims in the case and reaffirms the distrust in law enforcement and the criminal justice system by vulnerable members of our community, Moore said in a statement. So I skipped it. It says Frederick Moore III, one of Walker's attorneys, said that the verdict was not justice, and that was his quote that I just read. Let's keep going. Whaley argued during court Hankison's actions actually endangered those fellow officers in addition to people in the apartment next to Taylor's. Whaley is the prosecutor. All it would have taken was a small change in a bullet's trajectory to have produced a vastly different outcome, she said. His wanton conduct could have multiplied on tragic death by 3, Whaley said. At the close of arguments, 3 alternative jurors, 2 men and a woman, were chosen at random and dismissed, while the other 12 were sent to deliberate. What is wanton endangerment? All right. So the jury spoke. The jury did not agree with you. The jury found your legal arguments lacking. All right, let me go. I think this might be it.
Now to the Breonna Taylor case, and tonight we're seeing new body camera footage of the chilling moments after Taylor was shot dead by police officers in her home last March. This was after her boyfriend Kenneth Walker fired a shot which police say injured one of those officers. The officers have said that they announced themselves before breaking into the home, but Walker...
It's funny, like this was the point where he says it and she's talking over it.
Disputes that, saying that he thought they were intruders. Take a look at what happened next. Here's ABC's Alex Perez.
Walk straight back, or I'll spin this dog on you. Walk back to my voice. Keep on walking.
Dramatic by Taylor's.
Shut up.
Who else in the apartment? Nobody. My girlfriend's dead. Tell them we have 11015. What? How's your girlfriend? I don't know. Inside? Yeah, somebody I was banging at the door and she said, "Who is it?" And they just started shooting. No, we down 3 times. Please search warrant. There's somebody in there dead? Yeah, my girlfriend. Who was shooting at us? It was her house. Who was shooting at us? We have to go in if there's somebody. What is this about? We don't. SWAT can come. We're both just regular workers. Hey, boss. Where is she?
Now hold on. He about to say it, but they asked him twice already. He refuses to answer that question. First time he said it was her house. He said, "Who's shooting at us?" It was her house. The second time, "Who's shooting at us?" He doesn't say anything. What happening? Now listen to this, ladies and gentlemen.
She's on the ground. Where at? In the hallway. What kind of gun did she shoot? It's a regular 9mm. Did she shoot or you shoot it? It was her. She was scared.
What kind of gun did she shoot? It was a 9mm, saying that it's her gun. Did she shoot or did you shoot? It was her. She was scared. That's Kenneth Walker. That's Kenneth Walker. That's the guy who's out there during protests saying how much of an injustice all of this is. That's his character. That's the guy she was sleeping with. This is the guy who's on recording, jailhouse recordings, talking about robbing people with guns. That's him. He also worked for the post office, so they need to think about their hiring. Let's play that one more time, because you tell people stuff and they don't believe you. There'll be BLM people watching this right now who say, "Oh, you lying, strategic." He didn't say that. Well, listen to it with your own ears. Bring it back a little bit further.
In the hallway. What kind of gun did she shoot? It's a regular 9mm. Did she shoot or you shoot it? It was her. You scared. I'm spinning out. I just kicked. I'm gonna spin up behind you. Nobody, no, we're gonna let.
First of all, he's not even crying. He's not even crying. Nobody cries like that. That's fake. It's fake. Just like he's fake about who shot who. He's a liar. These are the people that we uphold as heroes. The people we mourn for, the people we march for, the people we sacrifice our communities for. These are the folks. And people look at me like I'm weird, like because I don't look at these folks and say, hey, you know, these are people that I want to exalt. Because I look at them for what they're worth. This guy is trash. He's a loser. It's unfortunate. You heard it with your own voice. I commented this months ago. It's starting to be years now, really. When this happened, 2020, we're in 2022. I've been saying this for years. This is not the first time I paid this. But why don't more people know that this is what happened right after Breonna Taylor's case? Why aren't more people informed that there are neighbors who witnessed the police knock on the door, say police? The only reason why they went to the battering ram to try and break the door down is because nobody was answering until a bullet goes through the door. And if you know that you're armed with a gun, why wouldn't you wait until you could assess your threat? He shoots through a door because somebody's banging on the door. What if I'm drunk and I'm at the wrong door? It's not castle doctrine till I'm in your house. Because this is not a house. This is an apartment building. So the hallways are public access. The hallways are public access. So what if I'm just drunk, knocking on your door, banging on your door? You gonna shoot me through the door? Normally, you'd be charged for taking that type of shot. Unless you're in a state like Texas or something like that. Most other states would charge you. He shoots through the door, ladies and gentlemen. He's the one who started the barrage of bullets. He's the one that caused the death of Breonna Taylor. And then after his action killed Breonna Taylor, he then blames the shooting on her. And this man is suing the Louisville Police Department for his payday. Why you think they haven't settled yet? They settled with the quickness with Breonna Taylor. They haven't settled because they view him, the people of Louisville, the Louisville government, the legislature, the town attorneys, they view him as a piece of shit. Because he got that girl killed and then he blamed her for doing the shooting. This is who she was sleeping with. So is there any surprise that Brett Hankison is not guilty when this is a part of the trial? This happened. This was a part of the events that happened. You don't need him to testify. This is official record. This is a part of the trial. The jury got to see this. The jury got to understand that this officer was returning fire after somebody engaged in wanton endangerment and shot through the door and shot a cop. But nobody will cover this the way it should be covered, with the facts. The facts. Let's go to the comment section, and then we'll make our way out of here. Danielle Williams says, I got threatened one day because I said Crump was a clown and doesn't care for these families and only looking out for himself. You know, I don't get that, though. I don't understand how people could be so steeped in ideology that when you have a difference in opinion, they threaten bodily harm on you, as though that will make them look like a civilized, intelligent individual. So Strategic Eyes said from day one that I support the notion of Black Lives Matter, but I don't support the organization of Black Lives Matter because I think that they're frauds. And now, lo and behold, years later, We find out that they stole $60 million from good, hardworking Black, white, Latino, Asian people of all walks of life who donated to Black Lives Matter. And this organization had an opportunity to build dozens of schools, dozens of colleges, of whatever they wanted, think tanks, whatever they wanted to do, community centers, parks, basketball courts, youth programs. They could have did so much with that money. They had an opportunity. What did they do? They took it in there buying mansions with it. But when Strategic Eyes said, I don't trust this organization, I was called a sellout. My Black card was revoked. And now years later, what do we see? We see that I was right. But I wasn't the only one. There was a whole lot of people who was willing to have the courage to say something's not right in paradise. Just because you say that the organization is rotten doesn't mean that the mission is rotten. It doesn't mean that there isn't a problem with police brutality in America. It doesn't mean that we don't have an issue with our criminal justice system. It doesn't mean any of these things. It doesn't mean we shouldn't we should stop fighting for these things. It just means facts are facts. And whether you want to accept them or not, doesn't take away from the fact that they exist. And until you have the courage to accept facts for what they are, nothing will ever change. Usually on that note, I'd say strategic out of here if I'm doing a pre-produced video, but we're doing a live. So I'm gonna go to the comment section, give you guys a shout out, and then we'll get out of here. First of all, big shout out to Kiki of 05, moderator for both the live show and the Discord, etc. She's working hard in that comment section, pumping out, links to the Discord, the Patreon. Please do yourself a favor. If you appreciate independent media, like anything in this world, nothing is for free. If you can support this channel, please consider availing yourself of either becoming a YouTube member. The lowest tier is $3.99. That's less than a cup of coffee. If you could do that, I'd appreciate it. We do have a $7.99 option and a $29.99 option. People avail themselves wherever they could fit on that economic ladder. I appreciate it. Please support the channel if you can. We also have a Patreon. If you already dabble in Patreon, you have an account, you already are a Patreon of other channels, you know how it works. If you want to support the channel, want to show some love, consider joining the Patreon. We already have people who are part of the Patreon. Support the channel. You want to get to know Strategic Eyes, you want to talk to me, you want to send me ideas to cover, you want to just debate me, consider joining the Discord. We're in there. We're having adult conversations. You'll find me in the Discord. You could direct message me. The direct messenger is almost like a text message. So it's almost like, you're part of my inner circle, because if you hit me up on Discord, I'm going to respond to you. So you'll get the opportunity to actually interact with this YouTube creator. Now, how many of your larger creators that you subscribe to avail themselves to their viewers the way that Strategic Eyes does? I'm here, okay? If you want to reach me, you can reach me. If you want a response from me, you don't got to give me a snarky remark inside of the comment section. I see a lot of people do that. Like, they'll be an asshole just so they can get a rise out of the creator. You don't got to be an asshole. Just join the Discord and come talk to me. That's it. You know what I mean? There's nothing else to it. Join the Discord, talk to me, send me an email, join the social media. I'm building out the Instagram page. We're getting a lot of people subscribing to the Instagram page. We're getting people subscribed to the Instagram page, and they're not even subscribed to the YouTube channel. Just like the Instagram page. So I post a lot of stuff on the Instagram page, a lot of thumbnails, artwork, articles, and stuff like that. Also, I'm starting to drop a lot of videos on Instagram too. So join the Instagram, join the Facebook. We had quite a few people watching from Facebook during this live. You guys know that we do stream to 3 different platforms. For every single live, we stream to 3 different platforms. We stream to YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. So if you got a Twitch, search up Strategic Eyes Show, subscribe to me on Twitch, listen to me on Twitch, all right? So we're doing everything we can do to build out this channel. I'm doing everything I could do. People who support the channel more than others, like Kiki Ovo 5, who's doing double duty as moderators, etc. They're doing everything they could do. The only thing that's left is for you to do your part. And the most basic thing you can do, other than supporting the channel, if you can't swing it, that's fine, is to like and subscribe and share this to other platforms. That's the most basic thing you can do. Just share it. Put it on your Facebook. Put it on your Twitter. Share the content. So I appreciate you guys immensely. Thank you for the lively conversation, everybody who's in the chat. I was just reading what Chris Dreyer said. Chris Dreyer says there was a New York Times article that says most people dispute the police announced. How do we know Breonna Taylor didn't actually shoot? The lawyer probably coached him. I don't know, Chris Dreyer. He eventually said that he was wrong. He basically said he lied and said that it was him who shot. And they did ballistics on a gun. Breonna Taylor's DNA wasn't on the gun. Her fingerprints wasn't on the gun. Her fingerprints wasn't on the bullets. Everything was from Mr. Walker. So that's a lie. Breonna Taylor did not shoot anybody. It was Kenneth Walker who shot that gun at that police officer. And it's so sad that he said that it was Breonna Taylor. But anyway, I don't want to go on another tangent for like another hour because I do have some housekeeping things I need to do. I need to fold clothes. I need to take a shower. I need to do all kinds of stuff. So I love you guys immensely. Thank you once again for supporting the Strategic Guys show on another pop-up live. You guys know I'm terrible with scheduling lives. I just come in and I do them. I'll see you guys on the next one. Strategic is out of here. Peace. Yeah.